Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Chelsea Noel. Chelsea, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
It is always good to speak to someone who is from the less exciting part of New York. I'm giving you the credit because you asked me to say that you are actually from New York. I hope that my New York City friends, the real true New Yorkers, are not upset at me for allowing your Buffalo, New York heritage to be called growing up in New York. So we'll just kind of go with that. How's that?
Sounds perfect.
Okay, your story is an awesome one. I'm so excited for our listeners to hear about it. But I want to ask you, I usually take a step back, and I want to ask you the following question based on your bio. I don't read a lot of stuff, but you have a master's in mental health counseling and a minor in crime scene technology.
Correct.
And that kind of led you to where you're at. How does a person get to those two things in their education? Like, what is it? Take us to your mindset, to kind of your thought process in doing that. I've heard of masters in mental health counseling. I've heard it. I can even wrap my head around a minor in crime scene technology. I'm just trying to figure out how the two come together to try to better understand you and your hustle.
Sure. So I went back to college at 26, so later in life. I first wanted to enroll into crime scene detective work because I like true crime. I did 1 year of that, but then I took one psychology course and I fell in love with psychology. So I was like, how can I combine the two? And that's when I decided on forensic psychology, and then it just went from there.
First of all, I didn't even know that was a minor. I mean, I assume that there's a huge connection between crime and psychology and obviously writing, what you do and all that. I love the idea of like the crime scene. Like, I'm just picturing one of these TV shows where like the way the murderer is found is via someone finding some psychoanalysis thing to do on the fact that they, enter through the bedroom window and not the bathroom window, but I guess I played too much Clue as a kid. Okay. Oh, I'm jumping in over here. Okay. We're just going to do it. You have a very interesting pen pal story. You started to tell it. I didn't even think we were going to go there, but then I was like, we got to just do this on air. So I think that let's get into the hustle of that. The floor is yours.
So I have two stories that happened at the same time. And I think that's where like the clash was going. But I began my journey for an undergrad honors thesis summer 2019. That's where I decided to reach out to a Buffalo serial killer, the Bike Path Rapist. I gained his trust. I completed my thesis.
Time out. Where was he at this time? How'd you find him? Like, you can't just say you reached out to a serial killer rapist. Like, come on.
Sure. Actually, funny story. He was actually in the APPU unit, which is Adult Protection Unit at Clinton Correctional Facility on the other half of New York State. And it was a 6-hour drive from Buffalo, right? We're picking on New York today.
To the good part. To the good part. To the good part or no?
So it's
okay.
Yep. I wrote him a letter asking if I could do a thesis on him. But the key to how I got lucky is I had a distant relative that worked side by side with him at American Brass back in Buffalo. So I name dropped my relative and I knew I had a 50-50 chance. And a month later, he wrote me a letter back.
What's the likelihood that, like, such an interesting story. So you decide you want to write on a serial killer, and then you discover you have a relative that worked with him. How do you not stop? Like, this is keep hustling. Like, just what are you doing? What are we doing writing letters up to serial killers? Like, how do you even get to that idea? Why does that drive you? There's got to be more there.
That's okay. Because I wanted to do more than just go to school and get a degree. I wanted to like kind of catch attention, be like, who is this student type of mindset at that time? And again, trying to split between crime scene detective work and psychology degree. That's where My options were either write a thesis or take sports and animal psychology classes. That bored me, so I picked thesis. And then I'm like, I want to do a serial killer or something with high profile crime. And I looked who was kind of in New York State, who was kind of like known. And Sanchez was the one who I knew I kind of had a 50-50 chance with getting a response. And he did.
Okay, so did you ever meet him, or this was just this was just a letter thing? You eventually go to prison to interview him.
Yep. I
Okay,
met
so
him in person 4 times.
how old are you at the time when you were writing this thesis? I think this is fascinating. This is a different type of hustle than we've ever had on this podcast.
I was 29 when I wrote him a letter. I just turned 29. And yeah, I by the time at the end of all of it, I have about 500 letters plus, gosh, another 500 emails, phone calls.
So
I
I
took
want to
pictures.
ask you. I have so much. So again,
That's okay.
I want to take this one step at a time because
Sure.
I think that this is an insane hustle. This is awesome. So you're let's early 30s, right? And
Yep,
you're
I'm
in a
35.
car. You're in a car. No, but I was at the time, right? You're in a car and you're driving to a prison
Mm-hmm.
to meet a serial killer,
Yep.
convicted serial killer, and you said rapist. I don't want to misquote
Yep.
you.
He was a
Okay,
serial
got it,
rapist first.
got it.
Yep.
So got it. So sorry. Let me. We're gonna loyal listeners. We're gonna make sure that this is accurate. You're a nice, sweet, early 30s young lady from Buffalo, New York, who's now in a car. You've had some letters and emails back and forth. You're writing a thesis on this fellow to meet, obviously in a controlled prison environment, but to finally meet a convicted serial rapist turned murderer.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
tell me about that car ride. Really, tell
Interesting.
us about the emotions. Take us there.
I think it was just kind of like a lot of disbelief. Like, is this really happening? And how come nobody's like supervising me? Because I've asked like my detective and captain and police chief friends, former FBI colleagues, like, hey, can you guys give me some inside tips? How do I talk to high profile? All of them said to me, they're like, you are too smart for your own good, and you've gotten farther than any of us have in our careers. You've accomplished more in just a couple months than we did 30 years. And I'm like, please don't tell me that. That does not help me.
There's so much there. But again, you're in the car, you're
Yep.
driving, and now okay, now we'll take the next step. Like I want to get your
Mhm.
mindset. You're pulling into what were you expecting when you pulled into the prison and when you met him?
I was expecting a hardened criminal, like face tattoos, really just stone cold aggression. And as I was thinking too, I was also thinking, don't mess up, right? Because, yes, first impressions, but also I've never been behind prison walls and definitely not maximum security. So I was high anxiety, don't mess up. I also, too, kept rethinking of that movie scene from Silence of the Lambs where Clarice Starling first meets Hannibal Lecter. That's a lot how I, in those 6 minutes, that's how I based a lot of what I would do when I first met him. What to say, what not to say.
And
Mhm.
so you had the thought of what he was going to look like and act like. It's
Mhm.
interesting to me because you knew kind of what he looked like.
Yep.
And you knew kind of his personality ish, I would say, because of the correspondences that you've had. So, what was it like?
I was more scared of the maximum security walls at Clinton Correctional than meeting Altimio Sanchez. When,
No, no,
what,
I actually think that that's a very logical, I'm going to say normal thing to say because to feel, because like what was going to happen? What meaning a lot of times, and this plays a little bit to the hustles, like a lot of times we convince ourselves of something to the negative
Mhm.
or to the positive, but most people to the negative when like all logic would dictate that you were in a very safe environment, forgetting about the fact that you were like I've also watched a lot of movies, right? Like every door you go through, like it slams behind you, even if it's
Yep.
not slamming, like it just slams, and every bar rattles, even though might not rattle, but it does.
Yeah.
But like it's interesting because you I'm imagining that you had this excitement, right? Like this is your
Mhm.
at this time this project is your passion. Your
Yep,
life is being dedicated to this thesis. This person, it's going to sound weird saying it, but like a very central figure in your life at that point,
it
right?
was.
Like meaning of the human beings that you were thinking about on a daily basis, this person is probably in the top because you're writing about him, you're writing to him, you're analyzing the letters that he wrote you, the emails, and all those different things. But yet you still have this disconnect because you never met him before.
Yeah, I was 17 when he got arrested and made news in Western New York. So
In
I
the
knew
other
what
New York.
yeah, I knew what he was like before meeting him. So I've already had like the public opinion. And actually, I didn't live that far down from his last bike path crime. So it could have been me. And fast forward, a decade and some, meeting him, yes, behind the walls, because once that door closes, you can't get out. It's like 20-foot concrete walls, barbed wire, guards. Everything is a door, and the next door won't open until the door behind you closes. Everything's on a buzz, and
I've seen this movie before.
yep. And, every guard was like, "You look lost." And I remember in the waiting room outside the prison, I walked in and the guard was like, "Do you need directions?" And I just blurted, I'm like, "Yeah, I need to get into the prison because I've never been there before." And then I got in, a lot of security. You really have to read up on the websites of what specific clothing they allow and make sure you really have it down to a T or else they can reject you. But once I got before the security gate, I still had to walk across the prison yard into this one main building. And I remember my whole body froze and my feet were just walking. And I'm like, nobody's like holding my hand. Nobody's saying, "Chelsea, what are you doing?" Like now I'm just behind maximum security walls walking around. But I get to the main check-in building. Again, there's more check-ins. And the lady at the desk, I gave her the paper and it had the inmate's name on it, who I wanted to see. And she's like, "Oh, this is an old number. He never gets visitors." And I'm like, she's like, "You need an additional clearance." And I'm like, "Oh boy." So I'm just kind of like physically there, but mentally, I'm like, what's going on right now?
But I imagine, and I've gotten into a lot into like the psychology of the hustle. So I'm fascinated by how people just keep going in those types of scenarios. But I
Yep.
imagine that at the same time, you also had a certain level of comfort that you weren't meeting a stranger. I know that seems so weird to say, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's a, right? Like it wasn't like you were on some sort of like weird mission and you didn't have any connection to the person who was going to come through the door. Like even though they said, "Oh, you need another clearance or this and that," you were like, I don't want to use the word friend. I use the word pen pal, which is
Well,
what you used.
yeah, he did become a friend, but at this moment he was just like an acquaintance. But you are right though. I did know him a little bit more compared to what the public knew because like I said, my relative worked side by side with him for nearly 15 years. So I heard stories from my relative about Sanchez even before I met him, like since his arrest. Stories, they covered each other's shifts, everything. So I kind of had like a different viewpoint a little bit. Everyone said he was nice at work. The community that knew him, they said he was always helpful. So it was interesting to see like that split where people who knew him said he was a wonderful man, but the public knew him as a serial rapist and serial killer.
And I want to talk about how that connection was built, but I have to ask, you had those two versions in your head
Mhm.
when you arrived at this prison. I love the fact that we spent 15 minutes talking about this prison visit. This whole episode is going to be about it. We're going to have you back to talk about more. This is crazy. This is awesome. But it's a unique hustle story. Which version did you leave with?
The one where I saw him as a human and very polite.
Were you concerned that it would be the other way, or you knew that the whole time?
I knew that the whole time. He knew it too. And if you look at his victim profile, I match the description to a T.
Yikes. Yikesers.
White woman, athletic built, attractive. Yep.
Yikesers. There's a lost art in 2026, and that's the art of communication in various modalities. So obviously you're a prolific writer. You've written, I want to talk about your work shortly, but you said that your communication was letters,
Yep.
emails, and personal interactions.
Yep.
Talk about developing a connection with a character or a figure via email and letters. Like, what is that like? Most people nowadays, it doesn't exist. We have FaceTime, we have all this stuff.
Sure.
It's so awesomely old school, but I just wonder, with your millennial tilt, how that all evens out or squares away.
So, kind of studying human behavior and kind of what I knew about older generations is I think writing is a lost art. It truly is. And when I was thinking about the first letter to write him, I didn't want to sign it like sincerely or address it, Dear Mr. Sanchez. Like, to me, those were kind of cheesy, but I wanted to put a twist on it. And I picked it up in his responding letter. He was mimicking me. So I signed off with respect and then wrote Chelsea. And he responded in my letter, with respect, please answer this with respect. So I picked up right away he was mimicking me. But I can also tell too he was guarded. But the reason why I signed off with respect instead of sincerely is because I know that once you're, arrested, even if you're innocent, because I've seen it happen to friends too, once you get that label, nobody respects you if you're, falsely accused and whatnot. Not saying Sanchez is innocent because he was
Did you
guilty.
intend that when you wrote with respect?
Yeah, I wanted to treat him with respect, so he kind of viewed me as someone serious, not
But
just
I'm saying,
wasting
was
his
that
time.
because you assumed that most people treated him without respect, or he felt that most people didn't treat him with respect, or just the way you were raised to treat people with respect? Either answer is fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah, actually, it was a combination of both because I grew up, always respect your elders, don't talk back. And I'm like, well, maybe let me just try it.
What's the most surprising thing you learned throughout that journey, which we've spent time talking about? It's awesome.
With writing the letter or just communicating with
The
him.
whole thing of writing the letter, putting it in the mail. I assume the second you dropped it in the mailbox, you had this like moment, or like a day later, like, I wonder if he got it. I wonder if he's going to read it. I wonder if that was a mistake. I assume you didn't think, but correct me if I'm wrong, that it would totally take over your life for the next few years and become your passion. Like,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing how sometimes taking that first leap, or making that first move, or doing something that's been on your mind, you write, you stop, you write, you stop, you write, you stop, just doing it can really change the entire trajectory of someone's life. I mean, I assume that without this thesis and without that story and what you learned from there, then your personal and professional career would be vastly different.
Absolutely.
I have to ask you, your writing is inspired by real life cases. In your background in criminal behavior, you create suspenseful, layered novels that dig into the complexities of the human mind. What is the most fundamentally misunderstood complexity of the human mind that you've discovered through your work?
Is that you truly don't know someone. And I know people say that, but they don't understand it. And that's kind of what makes people scary.
Do you think that people underestimate the complexity of the human mind?
I think I do. Yeah.
So how do you tap into that? How do you
I
leverage that?
ask I ask too many questions and I ask the right questions. And then also too, in my one book, which we'll talk about later, I did include letter samples of how I went around dancing with a serial killer.
You went around. Okay, go there. I didn't even know which book to go for it. Just go. I'm not even. I have
Yeah.
nothing to say. Go ahead.
And I didn't either because, like I said, I was asking like decorated law enforcement career professionals for help, and they had no idea. So I was guessing at everything.
But
Yep. So like I said, when he was mimicking me with respect, it's like a cat and a mouse game. And I kind of knew how to dance around egotistical people. And, it's like what to say, what's sensitive. But then when I wanted to ask more direct questions, I would ask the question and then I would put below it, you don't have to answer this. We can skip over it. And since I gave him the choice to answer or not, he answered every time.
Dancing with a serial killer. Okay.
Yep.
What does your family think of this?
Well, I don't have a mom, and long family story, but my paternal parent said you have to be honest with him.
But didn't say what? Like what?
My parents weren't parents, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, they didn't care.
I actually, I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by one of the things that I try to do on this podcast and in every interview is kind of take something in lesson that maybe others won't see. And I think that what's amazing about your story is without that, you wouldn't have taken the risk you did. You wouldn't have gone the path you did. You wouldn't have do that. And very often, and I've said this about active parenting before, but I think that it's probably equally as true for parents who maybe don't do as good of a job as we say in the modern world. There's so much that impacts a person and so much that impacts a person's hustle and that innate character with you. I don't think it would be the same if you had what I'll call a traditional parenting relationship. And therefore, not that I'm commenting on what would have been better for you, but it certainly would have been you wouldn't have been on a road that's even close to where you are, right? You would have been so divergent. You might have ended up in a real city like New York City. But I think that's it's inspiring to me because as you said that, it was like, okay, you did this, you had this non-traditional parenting relationship. Then then you come up with this idea that, hey, I want to write my thesis on a serial killer rapist. I'm sorry, I don't know which one's supposed to come first. And then you do it, and then you write the guy, and then you email the guy, and then you go visit him 4 times, and then you have this thesis, and now you have 2 books that are about the complexities of the human mind and crime and all these things like that, and you're on crime scenes, you do all this crazy stuff, and it's like, imagine if you didn't have that freer upbringing. Not that I don't think that there's no value in parents, but you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I get it, and you're correct because my parentals, long rabbit hole with that. I don't want to give them credit, but they also told my brother and I throughout our developmental years that we would never amount to anything in life because they never did.
But yet that was probably one of the greatest influences. Those words were probably one of the greatest influences. So you don't want to give the credit, yet that's the source of the credit. Not what ultimately did it. That's you. But the jet starter, you're the fuel. This was the spark plug. So what do we miss about your story? Tell us.
When I met Sanchez, first seeing him, I just looked at him and I was like, this is it. He was a short, 5'6" man, well built because he worked out in prison. But I think I was like his same height. And I'm like, you're the one chasing women on bike paths.
Isn't that something unbelievable about the human condition? It's unbelievable, right?
It was nothing what I pictured. And he's actually looked like one of those people who would sit at coffee shops all day and say, hey, how are you? And watch the morning work traffic.
Grab the door for a couple of people.
Yeah, that's
unbelievable.
So
that's great. I love that. Everybody should check out Noel novels. Everyone should check them out. This is one of the better stories that I've ever, in 130 something episodes. This is one of the better stories. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for being here. Chelsea, as you know, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational, inspirational quote, what it means to them and what it means to their hustle. So with that, I will say thank you again for, even though you're from Buffalo, New York, for joining us on the Keep Hustling podcast and for inspiring our listeners.
So my favorite quote that I've keep telling myself is every path has its puddles.
I love that. Every path has its puddles. Keep hustling through it. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. And if your dreams in action, if you have dreams in action, then you'll never quit. Keep your goals in sight. Thank you again, Chelsea, for being here.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good. And of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.